taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. It's the Tuesday show for October 16th, 2018. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with the guy who knows the things, S.P.E.C.I.A.L. How are you doing this morning?
Everybody.
This afternoon?
Good. So.
I have got to get out of that bad habit of saying this morning. I just got to say today, because, yeah, we are no longer... Well, it could be morning for some of you out there. Who knows? Good morning to any of you living in those time zones.
It's morning somewhere. So, yeah, I have spent the last, couple days poring over as much info over the Fallout 76. So this is probably our best and also probably our final deep dive on it before the open beta starts on the 23rd. Mm-hmm. In which we will be seeing the Xbox players play it for about a week. Now, some news has come out and some suggestions have been put out there, which I honestly don't know is if Bethesda's lying to us again or just trying to keep up positive feedback. But Bethesda's came out and said, "Oh, hey, yeah, we might have some more stress tests that are not the open beta for PC and PlayStation players to get a chance to play the game." Because there are a lot of PC players who are really upset that they're not getting a chance to play this game, well over a week until after the Xbox players have. And predominantly the players of Bethesda games are PC players, not Xbox players. Xbox players do not account for not even half of the amount of people who play their games on the PC. So I don't understand why they're pandering to this Xbox audience and constantly kissing butt.
Do they have some kind of arrangement with Microsoft? Or?
And I was about to say, obviously, the fact that Microsoft is carrying a humongous investment of cost into this is probably, helping them considerably as far as what they're spending on advertising this game. In fact, I would be shocked at all to find out that Bethesda's not spending a cent on any of this advertisement. It's all coming from Xbox. So all of the YouTube ads, which funny enough, this morning I've been getting nonstop YouTube ads for Fallout 76. So I think Microsoft is really carrying the bulk of this and is trying to really rev up people to play it on their system, but they have constantly screwed this up again and again and again. Not too many times, but they've screwed this up in how at the Greenbrier event with the content creators, they hard locked the settings to be 4K only because they wanted to show off how beautiful the 4K looked. And there was a lot of people saying that the 4K was almost unplayable because of how choppy and slow and stuttery, and the fact that there were some people who were getting 5 or 6 FPS, and it was really, really bad. However, what we've learned from a lot of people who are not supposed to be mentioning, I can't stress this enough, if you're in the stress test, if you were invited to it, you signed an NDA saying that you wouldn't talk about it or anything related to it, and a lot of people have been breaking that, and it's not been good for them. Some people are having their Xbox Gold passes, which you need to be in order to play this game, are being suspended until January 1st.
Ouch.
So this is don't break NDAs. They're really not cool. When we talk about the NDAs that we're under, we make it clear that we're under an NDA and that we cannot talk about this and that. Because if you break it, lawyers show up and or if you're part of a mass NDA, you get shut down real fast.
Right.
But what we found out from them and what they've mentioned is that when they turned it to 1080 instead of 4K, the game ran really smooth, and a lot of them are reporting top 30 frames per second as pretty much constant, which isn't too bad. Gopher, strangely enough, the Skyrim modder and Bethesda mod channel, I just finished watching a video of his about how he was ranting about how, the consoles and a lot of monitors have been going backwards as far as the refresh rate and how fast that we see that 60 frames go, because we used to have a time where you had like 120 frames, and then this has been, some of the older consoles used to do up to 120 frames, and then they did, from 60 to 90, and then this current generation is like 30 to 60 tops. So is the next generation, I wonder, going to be 15 to 30, just so that they can get those 20K graphics in and be like, oh, look at how beautiful everything is.
Yeah, no, not a good trade-off. Not a good trade-off at all.
It's been going backwards for a while, and I was just talking to you earlier about how, like, this is really dumb, and I don't understand why the consoles are constantly thinking that, hey, this is a better way to play. Do you enjoy 30 frames, or do you prefer 60, or do you prefer, like me, I can see 90. I know people say, oh, you can't see 90, but like there's medical tests out there that prove that some people are capable of seeing distinguishing up to 120. So I personally think that in an age where we're headed towards, like, more esports and stuff, why higher FPS is not, why that's not more of a primary thing that people are focusing on. It's really weird and stupid. But anyways,
yeah.
The general overthought of this is that the game actually does run very, very smooth when you keep the console within the frame of what the console was meant to run it at. And the console was meant to run it at 1080p on the current consoles. Next console generation might be totally different. So yeah, I think what we can sit back and look at there is that as far as the technical side of things, the prevailing thought right now through the stress test is that it's not a concern. And this is big because this is probably one of the biggest things that people have been asking about and have been concerned about. And that's the fact that, it looked like the game wasn't going to be running very well. From what we're hearing from a lot of people right now, looks like the game is in fact pretty well optimized, and if they're able to, like, put on the final polish before the game goes live, especially by November, whether or not we'll see that reflective in the beta, we don't know yet. We'll see how that goes, but from first glance, it looks like we're looking at a pretty solid game. So that's really good. And
from a
that's
technical,
exciting.
Are you speaking specifically from a technical perspective? And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
from the technical, from the screen, from the FPS that you're seeing, and then also from the connectivity, it seems that once people got in and were able to play the game based on the FPS and the screen resolution that they were setting themselves to, that they found that they could run it at a really good FPS and not have any issues with it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying there. So,
well, I'm actually quite surprised that they chose resolution over frame rate for that kind of an event, for that kind of event where it's going to be going to YouTube predominantly, and I mean, how many people are watching things at 4K on their phones? Like,
this is one of the reasons why you do not let PR people and salespeople dictate the rules of press events. Press events the rules should be set by the technicians, and then the PR people should work within those boundaries. You should never, ever, 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 ever let a PR person go nuts, because they always make mistakes. I've never met a PR person who isn't like, oh yeah, we'll show this and this and this and this will be really cool, but your technician is standing there, your lead programmer is standing there and saying, yeah, that's not going to go over very well. And the PR person's like, oh no, it'll be fine. People look on the positive side of things. It's like, no. You look on the positive side of things because you are a PR person. That's your job, is to be positive and to communicate with the audience and to, and to try and elicit from your audience the most positive response, which a lot of them are trained to do, and that's what they live for.
Have you ever met the internet? The internet does not look on the positive side of things.
Yeah. Now they're okay with dealing with like stress and like backfire and stuff like that, but they more often than not, PR tends to set that up and have it, shoot themselves in the foot. It's like no. You guys need to have somebody speaking the language of the gamers to the gamers, and then translating that properly. And there's good ways of doing this, but there's also bad ways of doing this, and it's like it's a little bit more on the tough side. Now, Pete Hines was not the one who orchestrated this whole thing. He had a good hand in it, but it seems that the Xbox people were the ones who were setting up a lot of this stuff. And if you remember, like, these guys literally handed really expensive drives to everybody that came there, on top of spending, in some cases, like several $1,000s on flights. I mean, the Aussie teams themselves, I heard one estimate that they spent like almost $100,000 on flying the Aussies out. So that's a lot of money. So they clearly have put in a lot of this stuff, but this is also Microsoft really trying to step up their game, trying to connect in with the people, and trying to see it through. So I think from what we've learned from the Greenbrier event is that we shouldn't listen to stuff that was focused on at the Greenbrier event. So
at least not about the technical performance of
it. Not on the technical side.
And there's a couple other things that play into that. It was an older build of the game. They optimized the area immediately around the vault, thinking people wouldn't venture out, or at least that's where people would be spending most of their time, which I think was accurate. But yeah, the frame rate drops that people were experiencing were mostly farther out, plus they were playing it on 4K for some reason where it was clearly not optimized for that. And so there's a lot that plays into that. But so we'll talk more about the more recent stress tests in just a second. I just want to say, if you're listening live today, please say hello in the live chat and send us your questions and comments there as well. There's already people doing that, of course, because that's how it goes on Augmented Reality. And actually, we had people chatting. I think it was up to 45 minutes before we even started today. I've never seen that before, but that's really awesome. So we will read and respond to as many of your comments and questions as we can. And let's just say hello here to Mega D-Man16, Thuggy Smurf, good Fallout 4 modder, who actually, maybe we should talk about this in a sec here. He posted a poll of Juicehead's viewers of their opinions of Fallout 76. Rave, Ghoul7 Kutrup, Notional, Blunt Man, Lamb of God, and hello to everyone else who's watching as well. So let's just get back to talking about the meat of stuff. So
as technical, as far as the technical side of this goes, if you've been worried about that at this moment, don't. So we will put the technical side down on this, going as it's going to pass. And if you're on PC and you have a good PC, and or if you know where your game is or what your computer is capable of running the game at, and you stay within that, I think we will have a solid working piece. So we'll give them a star. What do we want to do? Like, we'll give them a thumbs up for that one. We'll do thumbs up, thumbs down. So thumbs up for that one, as I think right now what we're seeing and what we're hearing from, and I have gone through an enormous amount of comments, posts, the Reddit, the forums, everything, and from what I'm seeing, 100%, I think this from a technical aspect, I think the engine is going to run fine, and I don't think anybody's going to have any other issues that you don't normally have in any other MMOs. I mean, hell, I messed around with RuneScape on my phone because it came out, and there were times where that was laggy as crap. So, if a 20-year-old port game that can run literally on your refrigerator right now, like goodness sakes, this thing used to be able to run on a Nintendo for like the original for F6. It's if that can have issues when they port it to the new thing, then you have to expect the generalized issues. But we're not talking about what I'm saying with the generalized issues is like, yes, you'll have generalized issues. There'll be times where it gets a little laggy. That's fine, whatever. But overall, the game seems to be made well enough that it can stand that. So that's a thumbs up for us on that. The next thing that we're going to cover is the base playability of the game. So we're going to talk about the special and some of the perks, and we'll go into that. So you have a grand total of you're going to have a grand total of 50 points that you earn when you're leveling up your special, but then each special point already has a single point in it. So technically you have 57, but 1 point has to be in each special trait. From at this moment, currently, it appears as if there's no way to reset your special points, but we also don't have a confirmation on that. It could be that that's something that they're going to add in later or down the road. Could be that you have to, if you go and you find a special concoction somewhere, or you go to a robot or an auto dock, you can reset those. That's a possibility. We've not explored endgame content yet. Nobody has, aside from the dev team that hasn't been talking about this. And for the moment, it appears as if the special points are not something that you can reset. And if that's the way that it's going to be, then that may make some people a little bit more upset or more annoyed, or have more difficulty with the game. But that may mean that you might want to have to roll another character at some point.
Well, especially since you get perks along the way, don't you?
Yes, so you get perks. Now, the general consent and the general feedback that we're getting is that the perk cards, you can change them whenever you want to. So you just hit the menu, go into it. You can be focused as a lone player under the charisma tree. You can play as a lone survivor or a lone wanderer, which will massively boost your stats when you're playing by yourself. But then there's also cards that under the same tree under charisma where you can help your other players by playing with a team of people. So obviously when you get into a team with your buddies, you're going to take a second to swap out those solo cards for the group cards, and then when you go back to being solo, you can swap those back. So that's kind of cool. Of course you have to specialize into whichever one you want. So you have to choose which ones of those do you want to unlock first. Do you want to unlock the group play first, or whether you want to unlock the solo play ones first. If you're building a charisma build, then you'll kind of be faced with that decision earlier on. But eventually, from what they've been saying, is that you will eventually be able to unlock almost all of the perk cards once you hit cap level. Nearly all of them will be available to you, and you'll be able to kind of shuffle through them as you want. And that there will be new perk cards added in periodically into the game. So for events, for content that you're going to get into, you're always going to be in and working with various new cards that come in throughout the course of the game's life. Some of these they've said are going to be holiday cards, so there's probably going to be some special Christmas perk cards that'll be out that you'll get, and then once you get them, once the event is concluded, you can't get them again, maybe ever, or maybe you just have to wait for that event to pop up again. But they've clearly said that there's some perk cards that are going to be available at only a certain period of time. So in the meantime, it seems that we have enough special cards to kind of max out. If you were to take one thing and max it out to 15, which is the highest level you can for your special traits. So you take your special strength, you can take that up to 15, and there's a ton of stuff that you can put in there to max that out, and you might not even be able to fit everything that you want to have fit in there. You can specialize into heavy weapons, you can specialize into explosive weapons, explosive heavy weapons. You can focus on carrying stuff or melee, and so all that kind of stuff. You'll have a wide variety of it, and so the special system right now, you're going to peak it at 15, which means that you're going to have to keep one, or if you do 2 of those, you'll need to keep everything else around mid-level or have one near a really low level. So let's talk about what people are kind of theory crafting for builds right now. And this is really cool because I've been looking into this all day. So for PvP, there's going to be a couple of builds that are really, really going to rock. And these are mostly going to be focused around endurance is going to be your one of your best things. Luck is going to be one of your best things. And perception is going to be one of your best things as far as like, and agility, as far as like generalized traits. So you need to specialize a little bit now. If you have a low amount of action points, but you're going to be like doing melee a lot, then you want to have the ability to have a decent amount of agility and a ton of endurance so that you can sprint constantly, because you're constantly going to want to be getting into somebody's face, and that's going to be hard if they also have a high sprint or movement ability, in which case then you're constantly going to have to be chasing them. However, if you're going for a shotgun build, then what you'll want is you'll still want that high endurance so that you can run up, get in close, but then you're going to want a ton of luck and a ton of perception so that you can get those, so that you run in close and let off, as much AP as you can in burst fires with the what's it called, the wrist thingy?
Brain fart. Oh, your VATS?
The VATS moment, yeah. Total brain fart there. So in VATS, you'll be able to run up, activate it, but then also activate the crit ability on your shotgun. So when you get into PvP, you're going to run up, do a big burst of damage with the shotgun, critting each of the crits, and then you'll be able to like run away again and like dodge in and out. So this seems to be one of the which will be probably a high-end, probably more common PvP build. But if you're doing Hunter, then you can drop the endurance, boost the agility so that you can remain in stealth, boost the perception so that you can get long distance shots off, and then create a sniper build. So you're not going to be engaging in the roughhouse, like close quarter PvP. You're going to be like lining up to take sniper shots and take people out from a distance once they've already entered into that system of the hunter like assassination target thing. So it's not like the PvP that you've seen on the screen and on the reviews and from the Greenbrier event, where it's like just run up and massacre, everybody's fighting in a close area and they're just going crazy. That was what we saw a lot of the PvP there. But with this new Hunter system, you're going to be able to set up traps, and then you're going to be able, you're going to stick in stealth, and you're going to see, oh look, here's this guy, he's coming right towards my generalized area, because that's what his target is telling him. I'm engaged in this, I'm pretty sure that he's looking for me. And so then you can take out the assassin who's coming for you, and then go finish off your own target as well. So that seems to be a particular build. And then the other builds are like, if you're constantly playing with your teammates, then one person in your squad wants to max out charisma all the way to 15, and then share all of those points via the unique tree that's in the charisma tree for sharing talents and sharing XP and sharing boosts for the group. And in fact, if you're constantly playing in groups, you'll probably want to take that anyways, and then have that maxed out. But then if you want to focus more on like heavy weapons and like pushing like end game content, as far as like clearing out giant like packs of the ghouls and the mutants, then you're going to want to max out your strength and your endurance, and because you're mostly going to be using just heavy weapons once you get into that mess. There's a bunch of abilities and perks that give you like damage resistance while you're firing a heavy weapon, which that's not going to be that great for the the long reload weapons, but that's going to be great for those miniguns, because you're just going to sit there with that minigun on the whole time, and you're going to have this humongous damage resistance, and you're just going to be a tank walking around firing that thing nonstop.
Okay.
Is PC going to have text chat?
Yeah.
Can't imagine games not having it. Oh,
Rave is asking, is there going to be text chat in the PC version, like in a lot of multiplayer games? I think I recall them saying there was no text chat in the event, like the gameplay reveals that came out of that. I think I recall one of them I watched saying there is no text chat. There's microphone,
yeah. That'll be like, it's kind of the thing now at this point in the world of online game. Is pretty much you're gonna have to be okay with the area chat that happens. So when you run up to somebody, you can just talk to them with your mic on, or you're gonna have to get used to communicating to people via the little emotes that they have. So
that was it. Yeah, there was no text chat. You just have these emotes. So
and the voice system is supposed to be up and working by release. It may not be in beta, or they might be testing it in beta, but right now they've said release or shortly thereafter.
Right. Okay.
And I think that has to do with the actual stress test that they're trying to get working. Is they're trying to perfect that system first before they can before they guarantee that will be what it's going to be in the game. So.
Right.
So yeah, that's more or less what we're looking at now. So yeah.
Hey, Whisper 803, welcome to the channel, and glad you're enjoying the content. So I had a question about these perks. So you get the perks by getting these card packs, correct?
Yeah.
And so every now and then you get a pack of cards for, I'm guessing, accomplishing or when you level up, that kind of thing.
You get them through accomplishing stuff. You get them through leveling up. You get them through doing some. There's some that are lootable in the game that you can pick up. Big reminder to everybody: when you're leaving the vault, you can miss. Right now, you can miss, and therefore never get them. Never get that pack again. But there's some in the opening game, and some people missed the cards. They just thought they were like. They didn't mouse over them. They just saw them on the ground, and they were like, "Oh, hey, look, cards!" And then they walked off, and they didn't pick them up, and they didn't get them, and so they were like, "Yeah, kind of, like 20 minutes later, they're like, oh yeah, kind of missing those perk cards that I totally forgot to pick up back there. I'm sure."
So can you not go back into the vault after?
You can't. From what I'm hearing, no, you cannot go back into the vault. Once you leave the vault, that's it.
You're in the world. No going back.
Yeah.
Right. So you get the card packs though.
Oxhorn did a really good video on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was really cool. But yeah. So
these card packs, they could contain any perk, really, right? Is it all completely random? So you might wind up with perk cards that have special stat requirements that you can't use, if I understand correctly.
No, most of the time, from what I'm seeing, pretty much all of the perk cards start out at level 1, and then you combine them with duplicates to get them to a higher level, and then the more you combine them, the higher those level requirements get. So,
okay.
In almost every from pretty much everything that I've seen so far, whenever somebody's opening up the perk cards at lower levels, they are getting level 1 perk cards. And then those level 1 perk cards are obviously they're able to equip them because they're level 1.
So it's not like the Fallout 4 perks where each perk has a specific level, like each level of your special stat has a perk associated with it. They've changed that system up quite a bit. Okay.
No, so what I've seen is like somebody who has 15 strength, they've got like 7 or 8 cards in that deck. Some are 2s, some are 3s, some are 4s. And so if you have 10 points set in your strength pack, you can put 10 points of perk cards into that field. So you can put in, a card that's worth 4, 2 cards that are worth 3. And then that'll max you out to 10. Or you can put in 5 cards that are rank 2, or you can put in 10 cards that are rank 1.
Okay.
And so that's how
neat.
that system is.
That's interesting. Okay. Taylor is saying a few people have been worried about not being able to respec the special stats. What do you think? Well, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, we just talked about that, and basically
what's where I think this is asking our opinion on it. Like, if you can't respec the specials, how negatively do you think that'll impact people's experience of the game?
If you're not used to Fallout special system at this point, then I could imagine that might be a little frustrating for you, but I would imagine that the vast majority of people playing this game are somewhat familiar with how to rank up their character and to spread the stats how they want them to. It might be difficult if you accidentally end up placing a point in something, and that could be very frustrating, I'm sure, but overall it's like, nah, and I actually prefer it this way because I prefer to have a character that is unique and not necessarily be able to like just automatically, reset and, adopt the latest build. Like I'm making a decision. I think I was talking with you earlier about this, but basically my idea for a character is going to be to max out agility, luck, and charisma at the cost of pretty much everything else. And I'm going to do that so that I can have this really luck-based AP. I was going to say a bad word there. This action point, super action point, because that's how I did it in the original Fallout and Fallout 2 especially. Is that was my build, was charisma, agility, luck. And it was really tough in the early parts of the game, but once I got some of the weapons that like favored like crit damage and crit action, every attack I made was a crit. And then once you get like Slayer and some of the other really awesome like crit bonusing stuffs off of it, so that you just walk around and you're one-shotting pretty much everything. So I'm making that decision, or that's probably what I'll end up going with. But if that's a decision that ends up like sucking, then I'm okay with that, because I mean, I've taken the charisma tree, so I'll still be able to help out my teammates at the very least. But having that luck means that I'm also going to get lucky when I'm looting stuff constantly too, because of the luck-based perks that are in there too. So
and
at this point,
just have to get good.
Yeah. So at this point, I would say to most people, it's like, if you've played Fallout, Fallout, then you know what builds already in your mind. You probably have an idea. Well, I'm going to go, perception, endurance, intelligence, so that I can hack a bunch of stuff and make good shots, but also be tanky enough to survive. Other people are going to be like, I want to walk in and loot every single coffee mug in the entire game that I see. Like, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to walk into a place and I'm going to pick up every possible thing I can pick up, just because they've maxed out their strength and endurance. So
I will be the king of the coffee mugs.
Yeah. So
no coffee mugs without my approval. All right.
So I like that they've kept that. I would have been really upset. Like I legitimately would be. I would have flipped the table if they released this and it's like, yeah. So turns out that because originally we got rid of traits, and then they've really like downsized what perks are in the games. And if they'd come out with this game and said, yeah, we just decided to get rid of perks, special systems, traits, everything, and not even included genuinely I would have flipped the table and said, screw you, Bethesda. This is
basically we made Fortnite with slower building.
Yeah.
But that's
however,
not the case. That's good. That's
not the case at all. What they've done is they've actually returned the traits in the form of the mutations-ish, sort of. It's not perfect, but it's an apt description that the mutations that you get and some of the cool things that you can pick up and some of the cool stuff that you can have your character turn into. There's the one marsupial thing. There was some good footage on that recovered, and that's like somebody was able to like jump onto a car or onto a truck and then jump from there on top of a building. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh man, that's That's cool. I like that. That sounds really awesome. But but there's some downsides to that as well. So, it's like, interesting. This is really interesting. I'm genuinely interested to where this goes from here. So
okay. Taylor follows up saying the only potential downside I could see is buffs or nerfs that affect the character in an undesirable way. What do you think?
I think they've made it to the point where it's like, so the mutations, you only keep them if you actively get the ability that lets you keep them. That's a particular perk card, and then you can make those things permanent on yourself as long as you keep that perk card in there. I think it's part of the consequences and choices that a lot of gamers have been wanting to see. I mean, hell, I've been wanting to see that kind of a thing for a really long time. It's annoying when you don't have consequences for building your character poorly. Playing MMOs these days, it's like, here's your talent pool, and it's like, this is just picking between 3 cookie cutter builds, or even worse, it's the choice between picking 1 or 2 cookie cutter builds. It's like, I don't want the ability to pick a guaranteed thing. I want to be able to figure systems out. I miss those old systems where it's like, I could put in points into whatever I wanted to, or I could like do stuff, and you could mess up and you could have a terrible character. But by having that ability to mess up and do things like that, you also had the ability to custom create things that the developers hadn't intended, which left and gave you the option of creating this really cool hybrid thing, or creating a situation or a scenario in which you could do things that other people couldn't. And I really loved that for a really long time. And that's not something that you get in most games these days. Most games these days are like, it doesn't, like, you don't even, there's not even a reason to pick some of the just hit random on your skin collection and then that's it. It's like, it's there for prosperity, and that's about it. So I think overall, I gotta get off this topic, but yeah, overall I think it's been a poor choice, and I think this is bringing back some meaningful choice to it. So that's a good thing for now. Continuing on with the perks and the abilities and the special stuff. So strength has remained the same. Melee attacks, carry weight. That's really good. Perception is of course the same. Detect stealth, which might be really, really important. So depending on how overpowered stealth is, especially in Hunter x Hunter, perception might be more important to that. A high perception, high stealth might actually be a really good combination. Then you got endurance. Of course, that's going to affect your total health and the sprinting speed, and then also your resistance to disease, which is going to be probably a big one. Then, of course, there's charisma, which has been changed a little bit. Allows you to share higher point perks, and it also affects your awards from group quests. And this was really important because there's lots of repeatable group quests that are that activate from time to time. So there's like a public workshop that you have to go in, defend, and hold for an extended period of time. Or there's like, some plague beasts show up and you have to hunt them down and whatnot. Those are special events. And the higher you have your charisma, the more special rewards you're going to get from that encounter. And then also when you're bartering, so if you have a high enough, you're going to be able to make a lot more caps and get a lot more money from the characters in the enemies in the game, and then be able to sell those to the NPCs, and then buy stuff from the NPCs that you can then sell to the players for more than for more than what you had more or less spent on them. So in that world, you're going to get a really cool system of, some people are going to be pro traders in this game, and they're going to be able to go, you're going to go, your team, you're going to go out, you're going to do a bunch of stuff, you're going to come back, you're going to see a guy with his little store set up, and you'll be like, hey, we really need this ammo, and this ammo. We've got everything else, but we really need, we need laser cells, and we need explosive ammo, and we need minigun ammo. And the guy's like, well, I've got a ton of this because I just bought it from the vendor, And you're like, well, it costs me like all my money to buy 100 rounds. It's like, well, give me all your money and I'll give you 1,000 rounds. And you're gonna be like, oh wow, this is really cool. Then you're gonna add that person to your friends list, and you're gonna, and that's cool stuff. And if what we're hearing about what they're planning to do, those will be able to be transferred to some vendor bots that the players will be able to build. So you'll be able to build your robot that will sit in an area of the map that you'll be able to have that is yours, and then people will be able to come and trade with your vendor bot, buying and selling the stuff that you gave the vendor bot to sell. So that's
a nice way to streamline it, if that's
yeah. Well, they're working on this. How well this goes over and how well the players start demanding things like this, we'll see, because there is a lot of demand for, like, there's a lot of people who want to see NPCs and a lot of people who want to have their settlements actually have some meaningful life to them, and having some robots or having some NPCs that are, under your protection that, players can come in and trade with, that seems like a really good idea. So we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, charisma has definitely changed a little bit. But the ability to share your perk cards for that is pretty good. And some of the stuff is like, some of it's like, team medic, happy camper, bodyguards. Like, this stuff is going to be super, super helpful. Squad maneuver, which means that you run 10% faster when you're part of a team. So this is all going to be like really helpful to people who are playing as team members. So charisma is definitely going to be one of those up there things in the future. It would also be nice if they tied your charisma level to the level of character customization on your character skins. Like, you can only have the nice looking hair if you've got like over 5 charisma, or you're stuck with like skin that's like, red and pimply and gross and damaged if you have like under 4 or under 3. I think that would be hilarious, but I don't think that's I think that's going to happen when modders get their hands on it. Stuff like that's going to be cool, because that's, then that's also a little bit more meaningful, but that's maybe just wishful thinking on my part.
Hey man, don't charisma shame. Okay.
So
yeah. So charisma.
Questions?
Sorry? So next, charisma, you were going through the special stats. So intelligence?
Yes, intelligence is next. So this is going to affect your ability to hack, which again, that means that a lot of players are going to want this, because you're only able to get into some areas, and this might also really affect me. Is like, I always want to be able to lockpick everything and to get into everywhere. And if you have to have like 15 intelligence to get into certain areas of the game, then I'm highly unlikely to cap that out. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that's when you have somebody on your friends list who you can say, hey, we're hitting the foundry to get to that, special door that opens up to this like other vault that's there. But we need somebody who's got a maxed out science perk on top of having a maxed out intelligence rating of like 15. It's like, that is a possibility, and maybe that's how you get access to some of these places. So yeah, we'll see about that. That's definitely gonna trip me up. It also affects your crafting too. So that's
yeah.
So
it might be a handy one to have.
That may end up being a high priority one. So agility is going to affect fitness and reflexes, and this is of course going to affect probably your damage mitigation, but as well as giving you extra damage resistance when you're doing certain things, like when you're moving or when you're sneaking. There's also this dodge ability, which you spend 30 action points, and I believe this is automatic, but you avoid like 10% of the enemy's attack, which again, it's like, this is really good for people who are running like PvP shotgun or melee builds, because when you're up close, you constantly can be spending those action points in taking a lot less damage. Now, 10% doesn't sound like it's worth it, but if that gets up to like 30 or 40%, by maxing out that card, then that's probably a really, really good thing to have. So, yeah. And then final is luck, of course, and this luck one is going to be really, really good. So it affects your recharge rate of criticals, which is going to be huge, but then it also helps with the condition, the durability of the loot that you loot as well. So this is going to be huge. There's also this like serendipity one where it's like when you're below 30% health, you gain a chance to avoid damage, period. I wonder how high you can get that. If you can get that up to like 45%, that seems like it might be pretty powerful, because then you just get low and you're like, as long as you stay under that 30% threshold, you'll only be taking like 50% damage. So, yeah. And then there's also like, you max out what you can find in containers. Some of these go up to like 80% chance of getting an extra med kit or food or ammo from each box, and that's doubling up your ammo gain, really, and doubling up the amount of ammo gain as well. So that's huge. And then of course we do actually have a mysterious stranger return. So I guess technically there is an friendly NPC in the game as far as combat goes.
I can't wait to get shot in the head by the mysterious stranger for the first time.
Yeah.
Just I see somebody off in the hills looking at me, and then all of a sudden turn around and boom. Okay. Yeah, that'll be. So this is what it feels like to be an NPC. Gotcha. Okay. What it feels like to be a
So that's the rundown of the abilities. So basically the perks, there's a ton of perks in this game. There is 150 points worth of perk points you can put in to your character. There's a ton of stuff that you can do. There really is a wide variety of options, plus your options are meaningful. It hasn't cornered you in horribly, but it has built in some limitations, which means that you're not going to just be able to like instantly remod your character to be whatever you want it to be for whatever situational scenario there is. Like, the things that I hate about games that have this kind of stuff is eventually a lot of them turn this back into a system where it's like, okay, we're going to have, we're going in to take out this high level behemoth or some giant monster or whatever. And so right before you go in and you fight them, the group leaders are like, okay, everybody switch to the build for this particular fight, and then everybody's like swaps out their build and their perk cards and resets their special points so that they're all spec'd in this one special way so that you can go in and you can cheese the fight. It's like, I hate that so much. It's like, it's just so dumb and boring. It's like, I don't want to cheese the fight. I want to see what happens when you take 4 nerds that have high intelligence, next to no endurance, next to no strength, and make them fight a behemoth with melee weapons. That's a cool thing. That, yes, you don't want to have that happen every day, because then it just becomes annoying. But the ability to like, well, we were able to take care of this and we were able to handle this, that seems like a great idea. And I personally think that that's better overall than having a system where it's like, oh yeah, just, change your spec to this for this fight, and then you change it to this. As soon as we're done that fight, we go into the next fight. And then it's like, I don't like that as much. They have a little bit of that, but if the special points remain as they are right now, then that's probably a little bit better. So yeah, so we'll see where that goes from there. Okay. So in that regard, I'm going to give this right now, as far as like the character building, also going to give this a thumbs up, because I think that what I'm hearing from people that have played this, and they all say the same thing. Within 2 or 3 or 4 hours of playing this game, my character felt different and played very differently than my buddy's character who went a different direction.
Okay.
I really like hearing that. I really, 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 really cannot emphasize how much I like hearing that after just a few hours of play, your character was totally different than your buddy's character. I Love that. And I think that is a brilliant and perfectly awesome thing to have happen. So looking forward to this immensely.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that does sound good.
Now, as far as, I'll answer this question here because we're getting it quite a bit. What's this game going to have against like Red Dead Redemption 2? Probably not much. This is not a next generation game. This is basically what at one point we even reported on was the Fallout 4 multiplayer mode basically made into its own game, which is a bit of a cash grab. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to let Bethesda get away with this. This is definitely 100% a cash grab. And for the most part, it seems to be okay. Like, for the most part, I am okay with how they've handled this and how they've made this turn out to be. I think it's fine. I think as far as like what they're trying to do with this is acceptable. I think the price point is a little high on it. I think it should be I think it really should be a little bit lower. But I understand what they're going for. So I'm not going to criticize them there on that point because they're a company. They need to make money. They need to pay for stuff. So, we've seen we've seen a lot of closures this year based on the fact that some companies weren't able to make enough money, period, and they've ended up folding. So, as long as the game turns out okay, then great. If the game turns out to be terrible, then this is really going to impact my perception of Bethesda going forward. So, but for the moment, I can't really sit back and say, 100% this shouldn't have been its own game. It probably should have been, but it didn't necessarily have to be. Am I saying that right? Is that coming through clear enough? Because I think I'm
not 100% sure on that last sentence about you think it should not have been its own game?
No. I think that it was up to them because they've added enough to the game.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay.
For now.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. So yeah, it started out as
I would have preferred that this be an expansion to Fallout 4. I would have preferred that.
Right.
I would have preferred it being a DLC or an expansion to bring multiplayer into a proper setting. However, I understand why that they didn't go through with that. It's also been a few years now, so yeah, I can understand why they've made this their own thing.
Right.
So,
and getting back to the question about Red Dead Redemption 2, I mean that's going to be that's a completely different style of game.
It's a different style. It's also using next generation AI and tech that we haven't seen in open world games yet. It really is the next generation. I'm surprised with all the delays that they've had that they didn't decide to push this off to the next console gen, but I think that's in a category on its own. Now, if you're, it also depends on your own personal preference. If you're not a fan of the Old West, then you're really not going to enjoy,
Red Dead. Yeah, and
Redemption 2 because it's a Western motif game. However, if you like the Western motif, and depending on how their multiplayer system works out, that could be a better game for you.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but you don't go into Fallout 76 thinking you're gonna get like a jam-packed open world with tons of story, like not in the same way that Red Dead Redemption has it, where you're going to have the NPCs to talk to. You're going to have just massive amounts of story quest and living worlds with the. Someone in our Discord was saying, they spent tons and tons of time and did research with scientists to get the animal AI right, like the animal characters just living in the world and stuff like that. So, it's a completely different thing than Fallout. Fallout 76 is going to be. So, I mean, it's like I'm hoping to play both. Just need Red Dead.
Yeah, I hope that game comes out to PC because I'm for many reasons, I am not a console gamer, period. I do not play console games.
Now, we're getting... there's been a couple of comments in the chat here about microtransactions. Are we going to have to spend cash on skins. Captain Dammit has brought this up a couple of times. So,
Yeah.
are there going to be microtransactions? And if so, what?
There are microtransactions in the game, and it has been clearly stated by Pete and by a few others that the microtransactions are only for cosmetics. Which, when you have a game that's always online like this is, you have to justify spending money keeping the servers running years down the road. So yes, kind of normal. And right now, the way that a lot of other games are, it's kind of it's at this point, it's like heavily expected. In Fortnite, you have a ton of in the Save the World mode, you do have things that are power items, which you can buy. You're basically buying power. But in the Battle Royale version, you're just buying cosmetics. However, there is an argument for why some cosmetics are better than others and do give you a bit of an advantage, because they have a tiny smaller hitbox than some of the other characters. And what's also funny is that most of the skins that you buy, some of these skins that you spend a lot of money on, they have a slightly higher hitbox, which is really interesting. I was doing a bunch of experiments.
I'm surprised that a cosmetic like that the clothing your character wears would affect the size of the hitbox.
Yes, I tested this thoroughly. If you're firing at somebody's feet, if you miss the graphical area that is their foot, so if you line up a sniper shot and fire right beside their ankle, but you're purposely firing 1 millimeter to the right of their ankle, doesn't hit them. However, there are some people who have bigger legs than others, and that is therefore easier to hit. It's a very minute hit. It's a very minute thing, which only affects close to medium range. It doesn't affect long range attacks. So when you go out 100 meters and somebody's shooting you with a sniper rifle, that hitbox actually grows a little bit in certain places, especially between the legs. So because the target's further away, and then the way that they calculate the bullet trajectory is changed a little bit, and the hitbox actually grows a little bit. It's this whole thing. It's really interesting. But however, it's in this, that's Fortnite. So we'll stop talking about Fortnite. In this, what we're expecting to get is we're expecting to have the ability to buy a bunch of options and changes to your character skin and all that kind of stuff. Hairstyles, outfits, that kind of stuff.
So if you have really big hair, does that make your hitbox bigger?
And skins for your power armor.
Yeah.
So color skins for the power armor, different add-ons and stuff for your power armor. Just visual stuff again. That's what they've got in there right now. Now, unfortunately, they didn't guarantee that they would never sell any physical object through there, which is disturbing. But vote with your wallet, guys. That's really what it boils down to, is just vote with your wallet.
The problem will be if they add those kinds of things in 6 months down the road, after most people who are going to play this game have bought the game already. There's no refunding it at that point. That could be a problem.
So one of the next questions is about how the servers work. How does the server work, when you're transitioning in and out? How does that, what's going on there? That's a little bit of a tricky question, and I want to address that too, because there's a bit of some concern from other people as well, saying that, oh, hey, what is, wallet voting. How is it going to handle? Is your stuff going to stay up, or how is the transitioning going to work? From what I understand, and from what I'm getting as far as how the server situation works, is if you have an encampment set up, the game will do its best to not put anybody on that server where your town, where you've set up your settlement, where nobody else has put their settlement in the same spot. If it's right beside it, then it'll put it in, but it will not it will try to not put you in the exact same group as somebody else's tower that is coming in on that location. When you're logged out, or when you're in the game, it's not going to forcibly make your thing disappear by somebody else loading into the server. When you load into the server, again, it's going to try and it's going to say, okay, you, Joe, have your site located at this forked road right here. It's going to look at how many servers there are. It's going to say, here's a server out of these 1,000 servers that are currently running. Here's this one server where somebody else has built their thing in exactly that same spot. It's going to try to not make you load into that server. It's going to make you load into a different server. So that's typically how it's working, considering that there's only 24 people per server, and the fact that the buildings are really tiny in comparison. You can't make a gigantic, huge city. That has some substantial impact on where you're, the fact that you're very rarely going to log in and suddenly your stuff is going to be gone. Like you have to repack it and put it elsewhere. I think for the most part, I think that's going to be where how they handle that. Now that's not a guarantee, and we will see more as the beta hits. We'll see how that system reacts to that.
And to answer Taylor's one of Taylor's specific questions here about joining a server where you've built a settlement or something. Actually, the basic idea is that when you build something on a server, that is tied to your character. It's not tied to the server. So if you back out of the game and then you wind up joining a different server, it'll, your stuff goes with you. Your base goes with you. Your settlement will go with you to the new server. It'll just have to find one where somebody hasn't built something on the same spot.
Yeah.
Interesting comment here, though. With the combat PvP activation system, surely that registers snipers and long-range weapons obsolete, because if the person you shot can't see you to shoot back, it can't commence the PvP. Interesting concept.
No. Yes. Yes. So this is, let me explain this, because I don't want people to misunderstand this. So you're engaged in a slap fight until the other person shoots back at you. So if you haven't turned on pacifist mode, no, sorry, that's wrong. From as I understand it currently, if you're just sitting there and suddenly somebody starts sniping you to the point where they kill you, then they're flagged as a murderer, and whether they're in stealth or not, their location is going to be shown to everybody on the server, and they're not going to be able to hide, and they're not going to be able to get away, and they have that debuff for 3 hours of normal time, not in-game time, but normal time. And if they log out after having survived for 20 minutes, they're going to have to log back in again and survive for the rest of the time remaining on that kill time. Okay. On that murder debuff. So when you're like, okay, but if I can't see the person shoot back at them, then yeah, you're going to have to go hunting for who's shooting at you. Or you can just put all your stuff into your, or you can run away, or you can transfer all your junk into a chest and then let yourself get killed, then find exactly where they are and then come back and kill them, because now they're not going to be able to see you coming, but you're going to be able to know exactly where they are at all times.
Okay. So
now if you're engaged in the hunter-hunter system, that's completely different, because you're going to be stealthed and you're hunting somebody and somebody else is hunting you. And so when you see somebody coming and you're like, ooh, interesting, I think this person is coming to try and kill me, and you kill them first, then, obviously that sets up, but you don't have to engage that slap fight system. You don't have to fire back. When you engage in the hunter-hunter system, you're fully flagged for PvP, which means if you step on a trap, or if you take a headshot from a sniper rifle, or if you get stabbed in the back, you're taking full damage even though you didn't know the guy was there.
Okay.
So now that's how that system works.
If if you're in hunter versus hunted mode and you see somebody coming and you kill them and it turns out they weren't your hunter, they were just some rando that was walking through the area.
No, you're doing slap damage, which means a headshot's only going to do 1% of your health.
Okay, but then you still might wind up in a fight with the person if you pick the wrong target.
You could.
Yeah.
It's all going to depend on, like,
Okay.
that's where you're,
that's interesting.
that
brings a lot of intrigue, and it's like, is this guy after me or
well, you're going to be able to tell. Like, this is really hard to explain until you see it in action.
Okay.
You're going to be able to tell whether or not you're just slapping somebody who's not your target, because when you take a 50 caliber and you shoot them in the head and they take 1% of damage or this tiny little flake of damage off, you're going to say, okay, that's not my guy. I didn't mean to hit that person, obviously, and I just gave away my location to the person who's hunting me. I obviously need to, like, reposition myself and run.
Right.
And the person who got shot is going to be like, the hell was that? And they're just going to resume about their business. There's lots of times, if you don't have the pacifist thing turned on, when you have pacifist turned on, you can't hurt anybody. You can't engage in accidental friendly fire. Friendly fire is turned off completely. And when you're in a team, you can't hit somebody on your team. You can't damage somebody on your team with your own weapons as well.
Okay.
So that this is where a lot of people are having difficulty understanding how this system works, but once you play it, you will understand it pretty quickly.
Okay.
So as far as the PvP system goes now, I guess we might as well rate this now too. I'm going to also give this a thumbs up because of the way that they've set it up. First of all, you can't, it's really hard. Like, you have to go out of your way to grief somebody, and that person who's being griefed has to be really stupid to let the griefing continue. So one of the things that you can do is you can sit on some radiation. If you're being griefed, you just sit on some radiation. Like, you dump your stuff into a stash box, which they can't steal from you. Then you go sit on radiation until you get down to like 0 health. And then the person comes up and slaps you and you die. Then you spawn in, you kill them, you take their caps and their junk. Now, if you kill them and it turns out they had no caps and they have no junk because they're just running around naked with a single melee weapon and all they're doing is griefing, then you just put them on ignore and you're done with them. You never see that person again. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be griefed 24/7. Now, I made earlier when this was first announced, I made the point of saying is like, well, what if you log into a server and there's 24 people who are there griefing you nonstop? It's like, well, that might happen. And it very well might happen. But I think there's a point, there'll be a point in which it's like, it's like there are ways to fix that. Like, for example, just walk into the Greenbrier, which is pretty close to 76. Just walk over to the Greenbrier and let people start attacking you at the Greenbrier and watch all the bots that are like level 47 turn on them and kill them all. So,
isn't it true too that if you block enough people, then you just get moved to a different server?
Yeah, if you block enough people on a single server, you'll just be transferred. And it's not even a lot. It's like 5 people on a single server. You'll just be transferred over because it's easier to transfer you than it is to transfer them.
Speaking of which, how does block work exactly? Like, if you block somebody, can they not see you and you can't see them in the world? Or
no, you just get phased out. They just get phased out to another server, or you get phased out to another server.
Oh, okay.
Whichever is easier at the moment for the computer to handle. It's going to take them away from your game or take you away from their game, and it's going to move you seamlessly over to another server. That's typically how it works.
Okay.
It just phases you out. It just phases them out, and you just don't see them again. So
there are some interesting questions in chat about comparing this to Elder Scrolls Online, which I would like to get to if we have time, but we're running a little long.
Well, I can answer that pretty quickly.
Okay.
Elder Scrolls Online was not made by Bethesda. It was not made by Bethesda teams, and it was not made by Bethesda writers. It was made by a studio that was under control of ZeniMax, because ZeniMax more or less owns Bethesda. And they said, oh, we're going to make this IP for this online game, haha, and you can't say anything about it. The team was not happy about it being implemented and being done the way it was, because when it first came out, it was horrendous. Not only was it horrendous, but the way that they handled, like, you had to, in order to play the game, you had to pre-buy the next like 2 months of game time. Like, they really screwed people over on that game, and I was so upset that after the first like 5 days, I never touched that game again, ever. Even though I've heard, oh yeah, it's great now. I hear lots of people say it's the best MMO that's out there right now. Don't matter. I still will never touch that game again because of the way that they screwed us, and the way that they tried to, in some cases, they quadruple billed us and then refused to pay the money back. It's like there was significant, massive problems with ESO, period, and it was run by a team that clearly didn't care about the audience. The team now that's running it, again, I don't know if it's the same people or a lot of new people, they have tried to make things as good as they can. And again, lots of people say this is the best MMO experience they have right now. That's probably true, because MMOs are kind of in the worst format that they are currently. But it's still nothing that I would never, ever play that game again. Just period, no. If they come out with a new Elder Scrolls Online, a completely new game run and built by a Bethesda team to make it play more like an actual Elder Scrolls game, then yeah, I might give that a try. But I'm never playing a ZeniMax backed, like a ZeniMax controlled title again. It's like, yeah, everybody at ZeniMax can go do something nasty. ESO is not a Bethesda game. It is a ZeniMax game. And now ZeniMax owns Bethesda, so technically, in a weird way, you might be able to say that ESO is a Bethesda game, but it's not. Nobody at the Maryland Bethesda studio worked on that game. And I get ranty by talking about this. I cannot reiterate this enough. Nobody at Bethesda Studio in Maryland, where they published and where they made all of the previous Elder Scrolls games, not a single publisher or person on the publisher or development team at that location worked on that title. So no, it is not a Bethesda Studio game. Does it have a Bethesda logo on it because they incorporated some of their writing? Yes, but that's the mandatory advertising thing that companies have to do. So they had to put that on the title surface of it, but it is not an official game. It is a subject of a sister company game that didn't have anybody work on it. Todd Howard never spent a second developing ESO. He never built a room. He never did playtesting. From what I heard, he didn't. He was upset and annoyed with the project to the point that he never did this. So that is a big difference. ZeniMax is a parent company. There are lots of parent companies whose sister companies, the companies below them, though they're sister companies, they never work with or do anything with the other people in any of those other sister companies. So you can't hold them all to the same standard or say that just because you worked at one sister company means that you are responsible for everything that your other sister company does. It's like, nah, that really doesn't work that way. It's just, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. You can't quantify it that way, because that's like, you say you work at whatever job you work at. Say you work in a big corporate thing, and say you work at, I'll use a real basic example. Say you're working at McDonald's, right? I don't know why you would, but some people, that's their starting job. So you're working at McDonald's, you're 15 years old, you're 16 years old or whatever, and somebody comes up to you and screams at you because 2 towns over at another McDonald's that's owned by another entrepreneur who bought into the franchise had some employee who spilled water on them. That's the preposterously of getting mad at Bethesda Studios because of something that ZeniMax did. It's like, yeah, I don't agree with that. One thing I really don't agree with is the way that ZeniMax got the license for Fallout. And there's there are a lot of people right now who are really, so way back in the day, when Fallout 3 was being worked on and being released, I was working very closely with some of the Interplay guys who had rebuilt Interplay Black Isle Studio and who were preparing to make the Fallout online game, the Fallout MMO. And there were a bunch of people who, when the license got stripped away from them, came over to the forum and laughed and mocked and took a crap on those devs over there. I know two of those guys today, and those two guys today that were mocking Interplay for having lost the license to Fallout are now today raging and canceling their pre-orders for this current game and saying how much they hate Bethesda. This is hilarious in the fact that people are just like, it's absolutely hilarious that these guys are now pissed off at something that they encouraged years ago. And I said, oh, by the way, this is probably gonna this is probably gonna make you mad down the road. And I said that to them at the time. I don't know, the old forums are down now, but I said, look, dude, you're going to regret this day because of this move in which the online game has been canceled, because what you're going to get out of Bethesda is not an actual online Fallout game that you want. You're going to get something that's not going to be something that is going to hold true to the lore. And I mean, that moves us on to our very next subject, which is the lore. Okay, so, yeah. Lore of 76. So the lore of 76, right now, a lot of people are really upset. Like, not just a little upset, they're really upset. We have two major violations of lore to go over. The first is a true violation, and that is that we have now seen that some of the Children of Adam armor was available in 76 in West Virginia, when it was introduced that this armor had only been discovered 10 years prior to the events of the DLC pack for Fallout 4.
The Far Harbor, yeah, where they brought that in. Yeah, okay. And but some of this stuff is showing up in West Virginia?
Yeah, so this stuff is showing up in West Virginia, and a lot of people are genuinely a little annoyed at this, and justifiably so, because hang on, I thought you said in the lore that this stuff was only discovered 10 years ago. Well, it was, to be fair, it was rediscovered 10 years ago. And now this is where the lore gets a little tricky, and this is going to lead into the second point. That stuff existed before the war, obviously. It existed before 2077 because it had to get created somewhere. And maybe the place where it was created was in some government or contract place in West Virginia, and that's where the armor was made, and it just so happens that you can find it and wear it. And that, in the timeline of 76 to the other games, that armor was eventually lost and destroyed after your character either died or sold it or vendored it or whatever, and it didn't show up again in any of the other games because of that reason. Mm-hmm. And well, it never made it to Fallout 3 because it had been, it had not been around, and the only place that it was in some shipping crates over in the DLC world.
So there are ways to work to explain around it to make it work, I suppose. But I see why people are annoyed, because it's an obvious retcon. It's an obvious obviously
it's
these
obviously
are just reused assets.
Yes,
that they're
exactly.
now having to come up with with an explanation for, and that's not good. Lore doesn't come from that.
Yeah. So now again, we don't know if this is in the game. These were devs using dev tools to guide the players around the map. So some of these items may be in the game available to the developers, but it was not intended to end up in the hands of anybody else. I can guarantee you right now that Kellogg's uniform or that any of the Institute assets from the future in the timeline are available somewhere in the files for 76. They're probably never intended to be used. They're just there because instead of going through and cherry picking them, they just moved them all over in mass format, and then they would take something, rework it, or readjust its look or change it to fit into the 76 lore. That could be what's happening here, and people may be going overboard on it. But again, this is also really important that you let Bethesda know that you do not want lore retcons to be taking place. This is not something that we want to see. We don't want to see Elder Maxim, the original, fall out of the sky and become a raid boss. It's like, no. We don't want to see Children of Adam suddenly appear here where they never existed anywhere else before. It's really messed up. And I did see Oxhorn's video on this already. However, the next area that this goes into is the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, in 2136 or whatever, they had to request to go out to interact with the outside world. And in some dialogue with the Elder in the first game, you discover that they haven't let in any outsiders into the Brotherhood for quite a while, or many years. I think it was. It's like for more than 20 years, they haven't let anybody else in. That means that they did let people in. They did let people join them. And perhaps the reason why they don't let the Brotherhood just go willy-nilly off into the on expeditions is because they did used to do that, and it was eating away at their numbers too much. And because we don't have any lore, it's not that we have settled lore that they're turning against, but we have zero lore between 78 and 130-ish. There's a big section of 50 years there where there's no reliable lore anywhere. So one of the things that we can let's make some assumptions, and we'll just kind of play with this. And if you guys like this idea, please let me know in the comments and in the live chat. So here's a working theory that I have that would reasonably accept and allow me to really accept what they're doing with the Brotherhood of Steel here in this particular scenario. The Brotherhood of Steel get to the new bunker, Lost Hills, and they're setting up, and about 25 years-ish later, or 24-ish years later, they start seeing these plague beasts in the skies. And they're like, wow, these guys are really dangerous. And they're spreading these horrible mutagens to other survivors and other surviving species in the wasteland. They're turning these like little squirrels into like monstrous killing machines, and this is really dangerous. We need to address this. This is a big issue. So the Brotherhood says, okay, well, we got to find out where they're coming from. We can kind of track their locations coming from the east. We have about maybe, they've got access to some vertibirds. Vertibirds we see them in Fallout 4, like pre-war. So clearly they would have had, at some point, especially if they went from Mariposa to Lost Hills, there may have been 1, 2, maybe a dozen, maybe 50 choppers at that location that they would have taken. So they would have gotten into those, tracked down where the plague beasts were coming from. Turns out they're coming from West Virginia. Well, great. West Virginia's got this team of survivors called the Responders, and they also have this government facility there. So they were able to refuel, and they were able to get access to some weapons and some technology and set up a perimeter and start taking care of the plague beasts. But then something happened that drove them all away or drove them over the mountains. There's this note that talks about how the remaining Brotherhood has fled over the mountains and are hanging out with somebody or know somebody, or their contact name is Abby, and they're there with that person, or they're dealing with that person, and they're trying to get home, or maybe they're trying to like finish off killing the plague beasts and the cause for them to where they're spawning from before they head home. Now you're saying, well, if they wanted to go east so badly in Fallout 3 and prior to the events of Fallout 3, why didn't they just go from West Virginia over to Washington? Because as far as we can tell, Washington was still highly, highly irradiated at 25 years after. And it would not have been safe until about 50 years after, which puts them a lot closer to where they actually said, hey, we should start to heading over to Washington now that the radiation is cleared out for the most part. So that's how, if they were to keep that stick to that kind of story, I think that would be more understandable. And then you could actually learn something. Like if, say, we get to the remnants of the Brotherhood of Steel base, and there's a letter from Maxim, right? And there's some messages there about how he's not happy with this, and he thinks that they should be more isolationist, and or maybe he's for it, and maybe it's the council that's pushing to become more isolationist. And you're seeing this stuff go on, and because they lost so many people in this, that's what drove them to become isolationist. That actually fills in a lot of lore that was previously, again, left completely empty. There's no lore that we know of that's highly respected or to my point even understood between 79-ish and about 120. So maybe what they end up retconning is that some of these survivors, they do end up taking some of those survivors back to Lost Hills in, like, say, their last in their last one or two vertibirds, and by the time 50 years rolls by, their vertibirds are no longer usable. So now they make the land trek over, which is what they did to get to the east. And then from there, they got that technology and managed to build up stuff. So I'm losing my voice, but that's kind of how I have a general thought.
That could make you happy with the Brotherhood lore. So lore overall, then, do you give a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Right now, I give it a thumbs down, primarily because there's not. We come out and it's like, hey, everybody died and/or left because of this mutagen that they couldn't live through. But then everybody that comes out of the vault apparently has a fine time with, getting super helpful mutations and are able to live in that area. So,
yeah.
So I'm very unhappy with the way that the lore is going for the moment. Even if all of the stories and the quests, and there are tons and tons and tons and tons of lore quests in this game. This has not been stated clearly enough by anybody that there is enough lore quests here that this puts Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 combined makes the lore look small, because there is just so much lore in 76. Now, I look at that and I say, well, that's good and all, but again, if there's nobody to impact, if there's no survivors to save, if there's no settlements to build, if there's no children to be made, if there's nobody to save, then what's the point of all of this? There is no point to, for me personally, playing through a game, just my personal perspective, there is no point in playing a story-based lore game in the Fallout universe if the record shows that it wasn't worth it and nobody lived. It's like, okay, that's really disappointing. I understand why they did it, because in Bethesda games, you can walk around and kill anybody you want to. You can kill an entire city if you want. However, I think they could have gotten around this by making the vault stay open, and you had children and the elderly in the vault, and your job was to go out and establish new towns, and to if you played Fallout 2, there's this place called Vault City, which they were able to, they set up a city that was attached to a vault. The vault was still functional. You could go down and do some work in the vault, and there were very few people who lived there. Most of them live topside now, and it was really cool. It was really interesting. All the guys got sterilized because of the radiation, but and you can go help them with that if you want to. But that was a pretty cool concept, and I really liked that, seeing that vault city and seeing how the vault in that case did manage to bring. It was one of the best cities to get weapons and armor from, because they were so, it was so well made and whatnot. So. Right. Okay. So in that regard, again, it's like, I need survivors. I need a reason to save people. If not, then, what's the point of it? It's like
fair enough.
Like, great, running around and see a bunch of super mutant vendors and some robots. Like, okay, can I have a family with the robots? Well, maybe I can, but maybe most people can't.
So yeah, most of these things you're giving a thumbs up to. Laura, you gave a thumbs down. Did you have any more points you wanted to go through? If so, we might need to push this to Friday, because we are running
itemization.
Short on time.
Yeah, itemization overall is looking to be really good. Aside from that one instance of Children of Atom stuff hanging around in the game, which I'm on the fence about. But right now, it's like they've got over 4,000 mods for just weapons alone. That's amazing. There's hundreds and hundreds of weapons, and I'm told that there's special weapons that we've never seen in the game that will be available from some very special drops, and there's going to be really cool things. So we'll see how it goes. And I'd say for itemization, I'm sure it's going to be fun. And I'm sure that there will be a slew of new items to get into the game. So
as long as that guitar sword or guitar axe or whatever it is plays a power chord whenever I hit something with it, I'll be happy.
Yeah. So that's more or less my thoughts right now. It seems that when people actually play the game and actually get in to play the game, it seems that about 75% of the audience, roughly, 3/4 of it, seem to enjoy the game once they get their hands on it. How long that lasts, we don't know yet. How much new content they add in, whether or not they add in new NPCs, whether they add in the ability. I'm going to push this I'm not going to harp on it, but I'm going to push this as often as I can whenever we're doing big content, and especially if we ever get the chance. Is like, look, you guys made a mistake without adding NPCs to the game. Can you please add NPCs to the game so that I could feel like playing this game is going to be worth it? Right now, the only thing that's going to make this worth it is going to be playing it with friends and also playing it for people on stream. I think that's really the only draw that I have to it right now. I really don't think this is a game that I'd pick up and play by myself for no other reason, but yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And we are going to have to wrap it up there. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening in today, for taking part in the chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast today, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link to that in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other S fans about all the things we love to talk about. You can meet people, stay up to date about everything we're doing here at S. There's always tons of great conversation going on there. So click the link below to join. Be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And I just want to thank everybody for supporting this show and for the great conversation in the chat. Again, thank you especially to our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, Jeranon, and our 2 anonymous supporters. If you appreciate this weekly content, please don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough. We really appreciate that. It's good feedback, and does well with plays nice with the algorithms as well. So, and also be sure to subscribe if you appreciate this weekly content. We are doing 2 podcasts a week now, Tuesdays and Fridays at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So whatever that is in your local time zone, you can tune in there live on YouTube. That's the S League YouTube channel, and you can tune in live. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio platforms, we thank you for your follows and likes and subscribes and whatever it is there that you do. And hey, feel free to join us on Friday for the live podcast where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity, and on behalf of Obsidian, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you on Friday.